Good morning mga ka-civilians. Good morning students. For today's topic, we'll be discussing about line types, dimensions, and scales in the engineering manual drawing. But before that, let's roll the intro. Okay, first, let's talk about line types. Now, there are various line of types. So you can observe sa figure. Now, when we say line types, there are different varieties of lines. Diba? And then, sa pag-drawing po class, sa pag-drawing students, line are essential. Inang lang din siya. Ma-project nimo ang imong figure, ma-project nimo ang imong gustong i-drawing. Drawing ang gusto nimo ipakita through lines. Diba? Lines are essential, especially kung dinhi ka sa manual drawing or sa basic engineering drawing, lines are essential. Now, the types of lines for engineering drawings recommended by the SANS 011 code for drawing practice are shown below. So you can see sa ato ang monitor, the two line thicknesses are recommended 0.7 mm wide and thin 0.3 mm wide. Now, although ang available sa market, we have 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, and 0.8. Common lang ginagamit sa engineering drawing are the 0.3, the 0.5, and the 0.8. Now, the rule for the thickness is the thick lines should be approximately 2 or 3 times as wide as thin lines. A 0.05 and a 0.3 mm pencil with combination is less ideal but also acceptable. Now, in the figure right here, shows the different types of lines and the relevant applications. Now, line type A, as you can observe sa atong figure. So, what is that line type A according sa atong figure? Those are the borders of the drawing, the title block, as well as all the visible outlines of the object are drawn in continuous lines. This should be the most prominent line on the drawing. So, sabutan na, si line type A, these are continuous line, thick and bold. So, sila yun ang pinakabagga. The line thickness of this is 0.7 or 0.8. Line type B. Line type B is the hidden lines. The hidden outlines of the object are represented by lines made up of short, thin lines. It is composed of short, thin dashes. Thickness on a line is 0.5 mm. Now, the dashes and the gaps between them must be consistent in length and approximately to the proportions shown in the figure. So, consistent dapat ang imuhang length of your dashes and the gap. And then, at corners and tangent points of arcs, dashes should meet. Mag-abot din sila. Now, let's go to the line type C. Line type C, it is commonly called as the continuous thin line. It is used for dimension lines, projection lines, leaders for nodes, hatching or section lining, the outlines of adjacent parts, and revolved sections, and fictitious outlines. Now, let's go to the line type D. Line type D are continuous irregular lines, shows the limits of partial views and sections when the limit is not an axis. These lines are thin and are drawn freehand. Pagkatapos ng mga drawing sa sections, usually gina-freehand na siya and then na-dash as you can observe sa ato ang figure. Okay, and the last type of line is the line type E. Line type E, these are called the chain lines, are used as center lines and shows access of symmetry. Now, what's the kalahian ni chain line and may dashed line? Ang dashed line is composed of dashes but uniform in length. Ang chain line is composed of long dashes followed by short dashes and then again long dashes. Long, short, long dashes. That is the chain line. It is also a thin line, most likely 0.3 mm in thickness. Now, there are general rules for line work. All lines except construction line, we have a separate discussion for that, should be dark, bold, uniform, and then it should be consistent in density, homogeneous thickness, and confident. When lines of different types coincide, the following takes preference. What are the preferences? A visible outline takes precedence over any other type of line. So, mas mo prevail gid ang outline, the visible outline, or mo prevail gid si line type A. Next, a dashed line takes precedence over a chain line. If ever mag-meet si dashed line o chain line, mas mo prevail po si dashed line i-compare ni chain line. Okay, the next is scales. Now, scale, what do you mean by scale? Diba sa real world students, di ba sa real world class, na kay gustong i-drawing nga dako kay nga object. So, for example, a house, a structure, a building. Imo siyang i-drawing, imo siyang ibutang into a paper. Obviously, dako kayo ang building sa real world, right? Imo siya isulod sa gamay nga papel din. How to do that? Saan mo siya? That's when the scale comes in. Diha mo duwa ang scale. That's the power of scale. Now, a drawing scale is expressed in the following format. Now, scale on one side, it is the dimension on drawing, and then the other side, the true object dimension. So let's say, for example, if this is the true object dimension in units, the other side of the scale is the dimension in drawing. Now, pasabutan na. What do you mean by that? Let's say, for example, the scale is 1:2, so that means half full size. Let's say, for example, the true object dimension is 2 meters. Pag abot sa imong papel, ang dimension na ana niya is 1 meter, but since the scale is 1:2, ma-present niya po nimo siya sa iyang actual nga sukod, pero naka-scale lang siya of 1:2. Next, we have 1:5. That means 1/5 full size. So, for example, ang size na ng object in the real world is 5 units. Pag butang nimo sa paper nimo, it becomes 1 unit. So the same with the scale of 2:1. So let's say, for example, the size of that object in the real world is 1 unit. Pag abot sa papel, imong gipadako, nahimo siyang 2 units. It means twice full size. Now, drawings should be prepared to an appropriate scale, preferably one of those recommended from the codes. Now, the scale used should be clearly indicated on the drawing. It should be reflected or makita dapat sa drawing kung sa scale nga imuhang ginagamit. Okay? Now, these are the common scales nga ginagamit sa real world. We have the category, enlargement, full size, and reduction, and then the recommended scales. Now, on the enlargement, that means gamay siya sa real world, imo siyang ipadako sa drawing paper. The recommended scales is 10:1, 50:1, 5:1, 20:1, 2:1. So that means gamay siya sa real object size, gamay yung real object size, and then ato siya i-enlarge pag abot sa paper. So na may mga dagmay nga objects, no? Then gusto na to nga i-drawing into bigger size pag abot sa atong papel. Muna gitawag og enlargement. Next, we have the full size. Now, kanang full size, kung sa kadako siya sa real object size niya, kung sa siya kadako o kagamay, mo po na atong i-drawing pag abot gid sa paper. Now, the scale for that is 1:1. Okay? And then the last, we have the reduction. Now, for the reduction category, the recommended scales are as follows: 1:2, 1:20, 1:200, 1:5, 1:50, and then 1:500. Also 1:10, and then 1:100. That means dako ang iyang size sa real world, or ang real object size is big, and then ato siyang ipagamay pag abot sa atong drawing paper. Now, if for special application, there is a need for a larger enlargement scale or a smaller reduction scale than those shown in the table, the recommended range of scales may be extended in either direction. Pwede jud kay nato ma-modify, provided that the required scale be derived from a recommended scale by multiplying a multiple of 10. Now, in exceptional cases where for functional reasons, the recommended scales cannot be applied, intermediate scales may be chosen. Now, let's go for the last topic for this video, the dimensioning. Now, the undimensioning is very important. Important to guys siya. For example, you have a drawing, you have done drawing for the viewers or para bitaw ang magtan-aw sa imong drawing makasabot kung unsa siya kadako ang rooms, unsa kadako ang balay, unsa kadako ni siya nga shape, unsa ni siya kadako nga figure. Ang magpasabot ana is the dimensions. Dimension plays a significant role sa drawing, especially kung imo na siyang i-present or imo nang ipakita ang imong output. Now, techniques for dimensioning drawings are considered under this heading. Whenever possible, dimensions are placed outside the outlines of views drawn. So, kung photo sa mahimo, outside sa imong object, diha ang imuhang dimension, not inside of the object if ever possible. This is achieved by drawing projection lines or extension lines from points on the view and placing a dimension line between them. So nakay imong i-extend, imong i-project from point to point, imong i-project, and then you have the dimension in between that projection. Maka-dimension ka outside of the object. Now let's try to discuss this A, B, C, D, E, F. We have dimension lines, arrowheads, extension lines, center line, extend bod, center line as axis of symmetry, and the last one is the datum line. As you can see sa ato ang figure, you have letters A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, first, letter A, the dimension line. Dimension line, this is a thin, solid line terminated by an arrow which indicates the direction and extent of the dimension. So, kanang dimension line, nag-end na siya arrow. Although, daga nag-practices karon na, the common lang yun is arrow. Pero daga nang practice karon nga, dili arrow ang dinagamit at the end-to-end of the dimension lines. Now, the numeral or letters are written centrally above the unbroken dimension line and clear of their dimension lines. If more than one dimension line flanks a view, their spacing should be uniform approximately 1.5 times the letter height or more if space is available. This calls for prudent planning before views are positioned. So, kung naka-drawing on, imog yung i-consider apil ang spacing sa dimensions. So, para mabudget nimo daan ng imuhang paper, then consider nimo nga kinahanglan pa ka mobutang of dimensions. Numerals should be placed so that they may be read from the bottom or from the right hand side of the drawing. Dimensions are normally expressed in millimeters unless otherwise indicated. Millimeters din ang common nga ginagamit, although pwede ta mo gamit og centimeters, inches, feet, meters, or other units of length. The decimal point should be bold and placed in the baseline of the numbers. Dimensions of less than unity should be preceded by 0. Now, the example for that is less than 0 numbers, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6 mm, and then so on and so forth. Efficiency suggests that a dimension should appear only once and not be repeated on other views. Dili mag-redundant, especially kung na-present ka og orthographic drawing, kung kana siya nga dimension na aning drawing, pwede ra dili na rin mo siya pwede og dili na nimo siya ibalik or i-redundant sa other views. This again calls for prudence, as in so drawing dimensions can be easily omitted on complicated shapes. With serious consequences, dimensions relative to a particular feature should be placed on the view, which shows the relevant features most clearly rather than spread over several views. Now next, arrowheads. Again, mo ni ang common nga ginagamit sa pag-drawing. Magbutang na kayong dimension, the end-to-end of your dimension line is the arrow or the arrowhead. Arrowheads are approximately 5 mm long and 1 mm wide. Draw the freehand and do not fill them in, since all else is counterproductive to your time management. Arrowheads are to be uniform in size and throughout the drawing, irrespective of the size of dimension. So, pwede rin mo i-freehand ang imong arrow as long as approximately it is 5 mm and 1 mm. Next, the extension line. The extension line, this is a thin, solid line that extends from the view to which the dimension refers, as you can observe sa ato ang figure. Extension lines should, whenever possible, be projected so that the dimension can be placed outside of the view. Asa man ang extension line? Din na kanang duha nga nag-ana sa gilid before pa ni barog ang ato ang dimension lines based upon figure. Those are the extension lines. The extension line meet the dimension line at the right angles. It should be 90 degrees. A gap of 4 mm between the view and the extension line is required and should extend 2 mm beyond the arrowhead. Next, a center line. This is a thin, dark line composed of alternate long and short dashes and is used to represent axes of symmetry and centers. Center lines are commonly used as extension lines in locating holes and other features. When used in this manner, center lines cross over other lines of the drawing without a gap. Center lines always end on a long dash. And then next, a datum. This is a reference line of the drawing from which a component is dimensioned. In practice, a datum is any functional surface or axis used for manufacture, inspection, location, or assembly purposes. On machine components, to ensure the required accuracy of measurement, the datum surfaces are machined to the required degree of finish. Now, there are methods of dimensioning common features. What are these methods? First, how to dimension a diameter. Diba? Padrawingon ta og circle, padrawingon ta og lingin. I-show na to ang diameter unsa na siya kadako nga circle. How to dimension it now? As you can observe sa ato ang figure that 30, 60, 80, and 120 all are in diameter. Now, how can we say nga diameter na siya? Ano na ito pagkahibaw nga diameter na siya? Dili na siya straight line but rather circular din siya and then that's the diameter. Ano na ito pagkabalo? How that symbol? Use the symbol when dimensioning a diameter. And then, dimensions should be placed in the most appropriate view for clarity. Dimensions of diameters may be placed outside the component. This is one of these acceptable methods shown. Next is radii or radius. Now, the dimension line for a radius is drawn to pass through the center of or is in line with the center of the arc. An arrowhead is placed in the dimension line where it touches the arc. When dimension ta og radius, it should touch the arc or the center of the radius mismo, and then it should be represented with an arrowhead just like sa ato ang figure nga ginapakita. Then next, holes. Now, in dimensioning holes, pag daghan gali na siya nga holes and then usara ang dimension na you will count the number of holes and then the diameter or the radius of it. Just like sa figure nga itong ginapakita. We have that 4 holes, 10 units in diameter by 15 deep. So, pwede ra ginahan na ang pag-dimension. Okay? So, we have also that diameter 20 drill by 20 unit deep. Multiple methods of production, for example, drill, top, rim, pans, etc. may be specified with dimensioning holes. Okay, so that would be the end of this discussion regarding line types, scales, and dimensions. Hope you have found something useful and naka-learn mo sa itong discussion today. To see you around, and then don't forget to leave a comment, like this video, and then please subscribe to our channel, mga kasibilyan, para updated mo sa ito ang new videos to be uploaded, educational and tutorial for engineering subjects. Thank you and have a good day, ka-civilians.